The federal behavior rule for an IEP runs 32 words, word for word. In the case of a child whose behavior impedes the child's learning or that of others, consider the use of positive behavioral interventions and supports and other strategies to address that behavior. That is the entire federal instruction, and the verb sitting at the center of it is consider. And there's one sentence buried in the funding rules that decides whether your classroom work can ever be used to delay a child's evaluation.
Erica here, 32 words, 1 governing verb, and 0 named methods. That last one is the part people miss. Consider is a deliberative duty. It obligates the team to raise behavior, to weigh positive behavioral interventions and supports, and to land somewhere on the record. But it doesn't obligate the team to adopt any particular program, any particular chart, or any particular tier of anything.
Chris here, 32 words. Districts hand out behavior binders heavier than the rule they claim to come from.
And you don't have to take my word for the wording. The Department of Education publishes the section itself, free, and it is 1 page long.
Consider is not provide, and there it is in the department's own text, section 300.324, paragraph A, subsection 2, little I. That highlighted line is the whole behavior instruction. Hold those 2 words apart and half the confusion in this field falls away because a team that raises behavior, weighs the supports, and records why a particular one wasn't needed has satisfied the rule.
1 paragraph. No forms, no cycle, no chart.
The accommodation episode ended on a fork, and it's the same fork here. Is the support not being delivered, or was it designed wrong? Answer that first so you can pick your channel, a team meeting to revise the IEP when progress isn't what the team expected, or a written amendment which is only legal after the annual meeting, only when the parent and the agency agree, and only as a written document.
It blocks access to learning. That is the test. Not behavior that irritates you, and not only the child's own learning.
And a quiet shutdown counts. A child taking nothing from the lesson meets that test just as squarely as a child stopping everyone else's work. But merely irritating doesn't. Loud while everybody is still learning doesn't. And how tired it makes you by Thursday has never been the standard. Impedes is a functional test, not a conduct test. Access, not conduct.
Tier 1, MTSS, RTI, PBIS, pre-referral. Every one of those came out of a district binder or a state framework, not out of the federal text. Professor Duran counted the real hits for us, and we're putting that number on the desk in a few minutes.
Which doesn't make them wrong. It makes them ours.
Your classroom method is practice, and practice works. That isn't a consolation prize. A predictable entry routine, a 2-minute check-in before the hard block, a seat change, a break card, a private signal instead of a public correction. Those change behavior in real rooms every single day. But Part 300 names not one of them, which is exactly why nobody can hand you a federal citation for the one they want you running.
And nobody can cite you for the one you chose instead.
Erica, say the harder half of that because I don't think teachers hear it.
The harder half is that the freedom cuts the other way. If the text names no method, then no method you run is protected by it either. Your break card isn't federally required, so it also isn't federally shielded. What protects a child is the team's duty to consider, and what protects you is a dated record of what you actually did. Those are 2 different things, and people argue about them as though they were one.
No IEP yet? Then you aren't in the IEP development rules at all. You're in Child Find, and Child Find has its own trigger, a child suspected of having a disability, even a child who's advancing from grade to grade.
Okay, but when does a teacher stop trying things and start writing a referral?
Even a child who's advancing from grade to grade. Chris, hold that question for a minute because the honest answer starts somewhere strange. It starts with a count of what Part 300 refuses to say. So what does it actually say about behavior? Let me pause for just a second because this genuinely helps. If you're getting value here, hit that like button, then subscribe and ring the bell. They cost you nothing, and it is the single biggest thing that keeps these videos coming. It says consider, and it says it once. Professor Duran flagged that word before we started rolling.
Once and only to the team. Nothing in that sentence reaches down into your Tuesday morning.
Special factor 1 of 5. Behavior sits at the top of the list.
Behavior, English proficiency, Braille, communication and deafness, assistive technology. Behavior leads.
Professor Duran, first on the page, or first in importance.
First on the page, the regulation ranks nothing.
Fair. Still tells you the drafters expected it to come up.
And the next paragraph names you by title. The regular educatsi.
Names me doing what exactly?
The regular education teacher. Participating in determining the positive behavioral interventions and supports. Not attending the meeting, determining the supports.
That's 300.320 though. The contents section.
324. 320 is what goes in the document. 324 is who decides it.
Huh. I've had that backwards for a while, taking that one.
So the building doesn't get to design the behavior supports on its own.
Not on its own, to the extent appropriate. Those are the regulations words, not mine. The teacher in the room is written into that sentence.
If you hold one thing from today, you're not a guest at that part of the table.
Professor Duran, you counted. How many times does part 300 say tier?
0. Not once in the entire...
0 in the whole regulation?
In the whole part. MTSS 0. RTI 0 as a word, though search the letters and you will hit participating and certification. PBIS 0. Be precise about that last one because the acronym is what is missing. The plain phrase, positive behavioral interventions and supports, is sitting inside the 32 words we just read. What part 300 never names is the branded tier system built around it.
So every one of those words is a district build or a state build, not the federal floor.
And the money for it, forget the money a second. Say the harm first. This is the sentence I held back at the top. Professor Duran, read it out.
Nothing in this section shall be construed to either limit or create a right to a free, appropriate public education or to delay appropriate evaluation of a child suspected of having
Say that last part again, slowly.
Of a child suspected of having a disability. That is the sentence.
That's it? That's the whole protection?
That is the whole protection. It is enough.
Almost. There's one corner of the regulations where behavior work is ordered outright, and this isn't it. Wait until we reach the discipline rules for that one.
Say the myth out loud first, because teachers hear it every single year.
The myth, try tier 1 first, then we'll evaluate. The regulation, interventions may not delay it.
And 300.301 paragraph B, either the parent or the agency may request it.
Which means a parent can ask today. I mean, ask today and the clock starts on consent.
60 days from consent, or the state's own time frame. We walked that clock earlier in the series.
There's a cap on the money too, Chris. Over or under 10%?
Under. Has to be under. Districts never get real money for
15%. Your binder is better funded than your copier.
15. I was wrong, and wrong in the wrong direction.
15% of what the district receives under Part B that fiscal year. That is the ceiling.
And it may serve children nobody has identified yet. That is the entire design. Cynthia's run this from inside her room. I've only read it. What's it look like at 8 a.m.?
It looks like a chart on my wall that somebody else designed and I still have to defend.
Can I bring in the one I keep coming back to?
The second grader? Go.
Composite case. Devin, second grade, out of his seat 10 times in one math block.
9 or 10. Not counted or not consistent.
Counted. That's the point. His teacher had a dated tally, same sheet for 6 of.
And the building told her to finish the cycle first.
6 weeks. And close. But no. They told her the cycle was the referral.
That isn't a delay. That's a substitution.
And a substitution is the exact thing 226 forbids.
So how long can a school make a parent wait?
The real question is, who is waiting? Nobody waits to ask. The waiting starts after consent, 60 days or the state's own time.
Both, and that matters. 60 days from consent, unless your state set its own time frame, and then it is that one. The regulation's actual exception is a different paragraph, and it is narrow.
Paragraph D. a parent who repeatedly will not produce the child, or a mid-evaluation transfer. A local practice is never one of those reasons.
Professor Duran, thank you for the count. Last word to you, one sentence.
Watch the verb before you watch the framework. If a local process delays an evaluation, the process is the problem.
Everything so far protects the child. The next stretch is where a teacher can do the damage herself. The method is ours. The duty to consider is federal. And I want to be careful here because this series keeps catching itself doing the opposite. Everything I'm about to describe is what teachers do, not what the law requires.
Say that twice. Nobody is getting cited for skipping a break card.
Your classroom record is existing evaluation data, and that isn't a metaphor. When a team reviews the evidence it already holds before deciding what more to evaluate, the rule points squarely at current classroom-based assessments and classroom-based observations, and then at observations by teachers, sitting alongside evaluations and information the parents provide. So the tally you kept, dated, in the unit the goal is written in is not a nice extra you happen to bring to a meeting. It's a category Part 300 already recognizes, and it is the only category nobody else in that room can generate for you.
So what turns a pile of tallies into a referral?
Screening isn't evaluation. 300.302 says it out loud.
The screening a teacher does to pick her own instructional strategies is not an evaluation for eligibility. And it cuts both ways. It means you don't need anyone's consent to notice something. But it also means you're noticing. Standing alone never counts as the evaluation a child is owed.
Then let me put the two columns side by side because this is the exact place the series keeps slipping. On the left, what Part 300 says. On the right, what we do. Row 1. Consider the supports. That's the rule. How you run it in the room. That's ours.
Row 2. Tier 1 and MTSS. Not in Part 300 at all, so that column is a district choice and a legitimate one.
Row 3. Delaying an evaluation. Barred. And never ours to do.
Bottom row is the one I'd frame. Your classroom record is named in Part 300 as existing data, and you're the person who collects it.
One line, and it's the only thing in this episode I'd call a rule. Never tell a family to wait.
And the softer version too, because that's the one that actually gets said. Let's give it 6 more weeks, and then talk is the same sentence in a kinder voice. 300.301, paragraph B, does not say the agency decides when a parent may ask. It says either a parent of a child or a public agency may initiate the request. So that isn't a courtesy the school extends. It's equal standing, and I'm not moving off it until somebody shows me the section that says otherwise.
I've said the 6 more weeks line, out loud to a parent, meaning well.
Most of us have, Cynthia.
And the fix is small. You say the honest version instead, which is that the classroom work continues either way and
that you'll help her write the request.
That she can write it herself, today. Helping is good. Needing your help is the part I'd never want implied.
And the functional behavioral assessment, the behavior plan, those aren't in this part of the story at all.
300.530, paragraph F. That's the discipline subpart, so it fires after a manifestation determination, not before a referral.
Make it real. Devin, 2nd grade 9 or 10 times out of his seat in one math block. What does his teacher actually do Monday morning?
Monday, she keeps the tally. Same sheet, same unit, dated. That's the rep.
Monday, she also writes one sentence to the person who can start the process, and she writes it in the rule's own language. She suspects a disability, and she is requesting an initial evaluation. She doesn't have to be right. Suspected is the standard, and a child advancing from grade to grade is written explicitly inside it.
And the interventions?
Keep running. They were never the toll booth.
So here's my verdict, and I'll own it. Run the classroom work, run it hard, and document it, because for a child who already has an IEP, that documentation is literally what 324.3 asks you to bring. But the moment that work gets described to a family as something they have to finish before anyone will look, it has stopped being support and started being a gate. And Part 300 builds no gate.
The honest counter is real though, and I'd want it said. A referral that arrives with nothing attached burns everybody's 60 days, and the child waits anyway. So collecting first isn't the abuse. Withholding the door is.
Both true, collect and refer. Not collect, then maybe refer.
If one sentence survives this episode, make it this one. Consider is a duty the team owes, and a school may not turn a teacher's classroom work into a condition a family has to satisfy first.
Erica, that's the one. If this series is doing something useful for you, subscribing is genuinely what keeps it in front of the next teacher who gets handed a binder and told it's federal law, and the one we couldn't settle today. Where should a teacher draw the line between supporting a child and stalling a referral? We're genuinely split on it, so tell us in the comments. 32 words, and one of them does all the work. Go be careful with them this week. I'll see you in the next one.